Good morning. I want to thank the Board of Early Career Professionals for inviting me to share a few thoughts with you this morning. And I applaud them for identifying communication and networking as this year's theme. Almost every important endeavor we undertake in life involves communication. And yet few of us spend any meaningful time studying it or intentionally working to develop our communication skills. In fact, poor communication is practically an epidemic problem in this country. As Exhibit A, I present these four statements drawn from actual auto insurance claims reports. This first one was submitted by a young woman who said, "That guy was all over the road. I had to swerve several times before I hit him." Or this guy, "It was the car in front of me that hit the pedestrian, but he got up, so I hit him again." "I'd been driving for 40 years, said this gentleman, when I fell asleep at the wheel and had an accident." Or finally, my favorite, "I pulled away from the side of the road, glanced at my mother-in-law, and headed over the embankment." Clearly, that group is in dire need of an effective writing class. The ability to communicate effectively was recently rated by business managers as the number one most important trait for promotability and leadership potential. That, according to a 2015 research project conducted at the University of Southern California. Other factors like education, initiative, ambition, experience didn't even come close. Now contrast that with the results of another study of more than 1,500 supervisors across the nation who were asked to identify one or two attributes that cause certain job candidates to stand out among the rest. Ideally, one quality that makes a manager want to hire you, retain you, promote you, and if possible, to clone you. In that survey, the trait most often cited was leadership. So one study says communication is the most important aspect for assessing leadership potential, while another says leadership itself is the crucial defining characteristic for hiring and retention. At face value, that could be confusing. A little circular reasoning going on there. But hold on. When you dig a little deeper, those results are not really in conflict. First of all, when the group who conducted the second study referred to leadership, they were not talking about positional authority. They were not talking about exercising control over others or ensuring policies are being followed. That group defines leadership as people at every level of the organization exerting positive influence on others. Behaviors and actions that build team chemistry and advance a company's goals. So from that perspective, these two survey results are complementary. Let me unpack that for you. If leadership boils down to influence, it's attainable for all of us. Leadership skills can be learned by anyone and should be exercised by everyone. But while great leaders come in many forms, styles, personalities, it's nearly impossible to become a great leader without being an effective communicator. Why? Because leadership, or influence, is fundamentally about relationships. And healthy interpersonal relationships require effective, open, honest communication. And on the flip side, in my experience, nearly every significant problem that arises related to dysfunctional leadership or unproductive team performance can be traced back to a communication failure. So if we identify a few core competencies that would help us establish a foundation for improving our communication skills and building our capacity for leadership, we can become practically indispensable. In the time I have left, I'd like to offer 4 such qualities for your consideration. But I want to suggest to you that the base on which all these qualities rests is trust. Trust is the foundation of all good, benevolent, effective leadership because trust is the glue that binds all healthy relationships, for friends, for families, for coworkers, and for every leader. So with that as backdrop, let's dig in. 4 qualities, 4 core principles that cultivate trust and form the framework for us to become exceptional communicators and effective leaders. Quality number 1 is authenticity. In plain words, people want you to be real. Whether they're friends, colleagues, supervisors, coworkers, or even individuals who look to you as a leader, people are drawn most to you when you demonstrate that you're simply an authentic, unpretentious, vulnerable human being with all the warts and flaws of a normal person. There are few ways to build trust faster and pave the way to effective communication more quickly than being authentic and vulnerable with your team. Instead of hiding faults and mistakes, authentic leaders own them, admit them. When appropriate, apologize for them. They ask for help when they need it, and they're quick to offer assistance when they sense another team member is struggling. When vulnerability and authenticity become the accepted norm, the entire team reflects it. Communication channels open up, ideas flow freely, teammates serve one another and hold each other accountable for results. Another great byproduct is that in an atmosphere where authenticity is prized, innovation can thrive too, because people realize it's okay to take calculated risks, to try new things, even to make mistakes as long as we learn from them and use those lessons to improve. So whether you're in a job interview, a staff meeting, or giving a speech in a large venue, be yourself. There's no need to pretend. You have something special to offer, and the unique combination of personality and talent you bring is exactly what your boss, your friends, your teammates, and your organization need. Now, the second attribute, fundamental to effective communication and leadership, is transparency. Transparency. In behavior language, be open. Some people think it somehow makes them more valuable if they stockpile information and then selectively hold back critical details from the rest of the team. It doesn't. Now, I'm not talking about stuff that's confidential here. That's different. But excluding that, when you have important information about a project, a policy, a potential change in strategy, share it. Share it freely. Share it openly. Share it candidly. It's as simple as this. Sharing information promotes trust. Hoarding it promotes distrust. The vacuum left by failure to communicate will usually be filled with some combination of nonsense, half-truth, or conspiracy. My personal rule of thumb is this. If a piece of information is not illegal, confidential, harmful, or deliberately placed on temporary hold by my superiors, I share it. But real transparency is about more than sharing information. Genuine communication involves receiving as well as sending. That means both channels have to be open. Understand this. Sometimes the best way for you and me to encourage communication is to shut up and listen. Listening is a real problem for many of us. I bet everyone here, myself included, can think of a time when you were mentally preparing your responses to another person's comments before they were even finished expressing their thoughts. That's not open dialogue. That's not communication. It isn't really even conversation. It's just waiting for the chance to do more talking. When FDR was president, he often endured long receiving lines at the White House. And it bothered him that no one seemed to pay attention to anything he said. That they were simply there for a chance to shake hands with the president, get a photo op. So one day, as the story goes, he decided to try an experiment. To each person passing through the line, he smiled broadly and said very quietly, "I shot my grandmother this morning." Guests responded with phrases like, "Keep up the great work, sir," and "God bless you, Mr. President." Near the end of the line, the ambassador from Bolivia finally heard the president's words, and with no apparent alarm in his voice or expression, the ambassador replied, "I'm sure she had it coming." We need to learn to listen. One useful way to generate listening opportunities is to develop the habit of asking lots of questions. Ask for opinions about improving an ongoing project. Ask for feedback about a proposal. Ask about family, recreational activities, dreams, goals. But after you ask those questions, focus on giving them your full attention. Take in what they have to say. Matt Mungy said it better than I could. He said, "When people feel listened to, really, truly listened to, it matters." Conversely, and I can't emphasize this enough, when people feel like you're going through the motions of listening to them, but you really aren't connecting and pay attention, it can be destructive. So if listening is an area of need for you, and it certainly is for me, I recommend to you an excellent TED Talk by Julian Treasure called 5 Ways to Listen Better as a practical starting point. Okay, I've labeled our third focus positivity. Attitude is contagious, whether it's positive or negative. You have the power to choose your attitude, and the choice you make determines the impact you have as a communicator and as a leader. I mean, let's face it, no one likes to listen to constant complaining. Negative people are drawn to drama like it was oxygen, but they are what author John Gordon likes to call energy vampires. They suck the energy out of the room. They love to whine, gossip, criticize, and cast blame, but what they typically don't do is offer up ideas or contribute constructively to solving problems. Dale Carnegie's words from 80 years ago still ring true today. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. I know it can sometimes be tempting to join in on a juicy gossip session, but in the long run, you will be happier and more effective if you distance yourself from that. And remember this, if someone will gossip to you, they will probably gossip about you. Tearing other people down has no real value. It doesn't create connection, it doesn't provide inspiration, it doesn't promote creativity, and it certainly doesn't build team chemistry. So if you want to be an effective communicator, work to make your messages positive. Be passionate about the work you're doing. Energize people, inspire them, challenge them to possibilities. Now, just to be clear, I am not suggesting you ignore problems. In fact, ignoring problems and hoping they go away is an extremely dangerous practice that can end up poisoning a work environment. Summoning the courage to confront dysfunctional behavior before it becomes a crisis is a crucial skill for every leader. But the question is, once you identify a problem, how long do you linger on it? And what do you ultimately do about it? That's the tipping point. The individual who can detect problems, articulate them realistically, and then quickly work to get on the solution side of them is the person others admire and want to lock arms with. Okay, so we've covered authenticity, transparency, and positivity. Now we've come to our fourth trait, our fourth foundational attitude, generosity. At first blush, this may seem like a curious choice, a bit out of place. But if you'll indulge me for just a couple more minutes, I'll try to connect the dots. And I hope to convince you It's not only relevant and important, but it could give context to our entire day and possibly to your career trajectory. I was recently thinking about people that I've worked for or worked with. People that I respect a great deal because they seem to have the whole package: compelling communicators, effective team builders, leadership savvy. And it occurred to me, one thing they all have in common is a discernible passion for developing others. In most cases, that mindset developed as a natural evolution. And we all go through a period where we're largely attentive to our own ambitions and aspirations. And let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a good chance many of you are in that season right now. And as long as reaching personal goals doesn't involve harming and tearing down other people, it's natural and appropriate to entertain a sort of what's best for me mindset as you're building your career. It is also true, however, that every extraordinary, well-respected leader I have ever encountered experienced a transformation, sometimes in a defined moment, more often as an almost imperceptible process. But somewhere along the line, there was a change from a me focus to an others focus. Every single one. They don't specifically refer to themselves that way. It just comes out in their conversations and actions, what they get excited about, how they do things. It's not about them. It's about helping others learn and grow and succeed. Adopting this outlook is a choice that brings tremendous fulfillment and satisfaction, but it's also a choice that goes against the grain. Because as you advance in your career, you'll earn a certain amount of power and authority connected to your position. And the decision to go all in on serving and developing others is directly related to what you do with that power and authority. Bottom line, leaders who give away power instead of protecting it inspire trust. These are the leaders who see their career as a vehicle and a calling to serve others. They provide opportunities, they remove barriers, they mentor, they cheerlead, they encourage. They see to it that contributions and accomplishments are recognized. This is not something you can fake. People can tell whether you're invested in them or primarily in it for yourself. And the great paradoxical lesson is that when you decide to be generous, to give your best away by investing in others, you multiply your own effectiveness. It starts a continuous cycle of growth and expansion, creating opportunities for new leaders to shine, who then raise up more leaders, who accomplish far more collectively than any one of you ever could. And the knowledge that you have contributed to something lasting, something that created connection, meaning, significance, and value, is sufficient reward. That's the real secret to becoming indispensable. And that's my wish for each of you. Thanks for listening.